Hi, and welcome once again to Ivy English. I'm Karen.
And I'm Chris Gorski.
Today is June 23rd, and we're going to hear part 2 of the article that we discussed yesterday entitled The Wonderful World of Egg Tarts.
So as a child, I was aware of egg tarts. Our day one article emphasizes that a lot of people think they're Asian. I thought they were European because of my grandmother, and she made egg tarts. I was familiar with them, and I was not interested in them as a kid because, well, it's egg and it's tart. Like, why are eggs tart? That sounds terrible.
Because tart also means sour.
That's right. Tart has several meanings here, and tart in egg tart, of course, is not sour. It's savory. It has a salty flavor. It has a very fulfilling, fatty flavor. But tart can be used to describe like sour candy or think of a sour apple, and also has other meanings.
That's right. Tart is often a more polite way of saying sour because sour sounds strong and a bit negative. And you say, how do you like the punch? It's a bit tart. It doesn't sound so critical. So that's one thing. And before we go on, I want to mention that I don't usually call them egg tarts. At least I didn't before I came here. They're custard tarts.
I did call them egg tarts.
Okay.
But although I had heard of custard tarts, I did not know they were the same thing. I thought they were different.
Right. So egg with milk in it and sugar and other things made, and then it's usually steamed or baked. That is usually called custard, and you have that word in Chinese now too. Our title again is The Wonderful World of Egg Tarts. Here we go. Lovers of egg tarts will no doubt be thrilled to learn that this delicious snack has a number of exciting variations. Today, we look at some popular modified versions of the classic egg tart.
While egg tarts were introduced to Hong Kong in the 1940s, the city has developed its own dim sum style of egg tart ever since. The filling of Hong Kong's tart is smoother in contrast to the custard-like center of the classic egg tart. Such filling is made of mostly eggs, sugar, and unsweetened condensed milk.
Although egg tarts are believed to have originated in Portugal in the 13th century, they are hugely popular in Asia now. When seeking a mixture of Portuguese and Chinese culture, we need look no further than Macau, a former Portuguese colony. In 1989, a British baker living in Macau named Andrew Stowe opened a bakery and began selling his very own version of the egg tart, one with English custard, a Portuguese crust, and a burned top. His intention was to give Macau's Portuguese community a little taste of home, and thus the Macanese egg tart was born.
Finally, we look across the East China Sea to Japan. In 2013, a bakery invented a new type of egg tart containing French and Hokkaido cream cheese. This new cheesy cake on the tart went viral instantly in Japan, so much so that it soon began making appearances in various other Asian countries.
If you're an egg tart lover seeking some fun new twist to your favorite snack, rest assured that plenty of delicious options are available. Okay, so my statement is that I really prefer the Portuguese variety because it is so much more tender. The crust is softer and flakier rather than just being hard like a cookie with this very hard egg filling of the traditional egg tart. That's a personal feeling. Let's go back to the beginning, the wonderful world of egg tarts. Lovers of egg tarts will no doubt be thrilled to learn that this delicious snack has a number of exciting variations. So if you like custard tarts, if you like egg tarts, you may find it interesting to learn that there is not just one kind. There are many different kinds. There are many variations, which the article says are really exciting. Today, we look at some popular modified versions of the classic egg tart. Now, however I feel about sweets and egg tarts, I have to confess that when I'm reading this, my mouth is watering.
So let me ask you, when you have the option to try an old classic or the new modified version, generally speaking, do you reach for the old classic or like the new take?
It's really hard to generalize because sometimes the old classic is wonderful, like an old classic apple pie is wonderful. And some of the new variations, they've got more sugar and more fat. They're just really a heavy food is not as good. But it really depends.
That's funny. When you said apple pie, I had cheesecake in mind. And I have this debate with friends because my friends know that I really appreciate a good cheesecake. Like I go out of my way to like find a good cheesecake. And there's several places that I appreciate and I like recommend full-heartedly. And when it comes to cheesecake, I don't bother with the new variations. I think that you can make an old classic even better. You can perfect the original. And I would take that over like the blueberry version or the raspberry version or whatever it is. Give me the OG classic version, and that's the one I define as this is the best way to know if your product is good or not.
Very often I agree. But in the case of egg tarts, I think the so-called new version is much better.
They've improved. Interesting.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay.
Let's continue to our next paragraph. While egg tarts were introduced to Hong Kong in the 1940s, the city has developed its own dim sum style of egg tart ever since.
So dim sum is a Chinese word. It's a compound, but it's Cantonese, so you don't recognize it. You have the same word in Mandarin. It's spelled D-I-A-N and X-I-N in Pinyin, so you'll know what it is. And dim sum is a style of different kinds of snacks, usually eaten for breakfast or brunch in Hong Kong. When I was in Hong Kong, they got up so late. I mean, I'm an early riser. I get up usually around 6 or so. And nothing was moving. Nothing was happening until 10 a.m. Until 10 a.m. Nothing. And I lived in a building that had a whole bunch of restaurants. So I knew exactly when they were starting. And it was like well after 9:30. And you couldn't even get breakfast there. It was basically before 10.
That's funny. I should have maybe spent more time in Hong Kong. I am very much a night owl. I am very much a person that does my best work probably after 8 p.m. and till about 2 a.m.
Okay.
I enjoy my evenings. I'm very productive at night. And let me tell you, Taipei, you guys love that morning.
Yes, that's true. I appreciate that because I'm a morning person. So for Hong Kong, they've got all of these big regular restaurants, seafood restaurants, etc. And they do a big business in regular restaurant meals in the evening. But starting around 10 a.m., they've got their dim sum carts, going around. People come in late. They have a brunch, and they're still eating by lunchtime. And then they pick up all the food, and they start playing mahjong.
Oh, let me tell you, I have a lot of fondness for the Hong Kong style of Chinese food. My friends, when I first got introduced kind of to more like Chinese American culture, it was in university where I grew up in Buffalo, which is on the one end of New York State. And of course, when we think New York State, we think New York City, but the whole state is not New York City. It's a small part of the state. My university was about as far away as you could get away from your parents without having to pay out-of-state tuition. So we had a billion people from New York City looking to get away from mom and dad.
Oh, really?
While
Wasn't
still
just
paying
you?
In-state country. Well, I mean, I grew up in Buffalo.
You grew up there. I got it. Yeah.
Right. But I was very interested in all these people from different places. I purposely tried not to just hang out with the same old people. And my friends from New York City introduced me to like good quality dim sum when I would go visit them in New York City. And I have a very warm, fuzzy feeling when it comes to like a good dim sum restaurant.
Oh, yeah. A lot of Chinese food in the U.S. is not authentic, but there are a lot of really good dim sum restaurants, especially in Chinatown.
Yeah, in Chinatown, New York City, there's a lot of good places to eat.
That's right. Okay, so they're saying that there was a specific version developed for this dim sum brunch that is so popular in Cantonese-speaking areas. The filling of Hong Kong's tart is smoother in contrast to the custard-like center of the classic egg tart. And that's the one I don't care for because it's too hard. It's just hard.
I need to probably try a bunch of different kinds of egg tarts because I just don't, like I said, I was okay with them. And I probably just never ate enough to say like this is a really good one. Or maybe I just had like a really okay one. And so I never developed affinity for them.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to go out of my way to try to find a good egg tart. All right. I'm going to go out of my way maybe this week and try one. Okay. Let's go to our next sentence here. Such filling is made of mostly eggs, sugar, and unsweetened condensed milk.
If you grew up in America, we have two different kinds of canned milk. One is called sweetened condensed milk, and that's what's used in Taiwan over shave ice. Like if you have shave ice with red bean, you dump some, dribble some of this sweetened condensed milk over it. The kind that is not sweetened, we call it evaporated milk. Next paragraph. Although egg tarts are believed to have originated in Portugal in the 13th century, they are hugely popular in Asia now, and we've kind of covered it. Originated in, that means the place where it was first thought up. When seeking a mixture of Portuguese and Chinese culture, we need look no further than Macau, a former Portuguese colony. And when you say Portuguese and Chinese together, the first thing I think of is Macau. And I visited there before, and I was with a friend, and we had wonderful Portuguese food in a restaurant. And I'm not a drinker. I had only a bit of wine, but I got so drunk. That wine really packed a punch. So those are the things I remember of Portuguese culture in Macau.
Did you visit the casinos?
No, I did not.
That's funny because I'm not a gambler. I'm not a drinker. I would try a sip of the wine.
Yeah.
I really hate the idea of wasting money in a casino. That is not for me. But I would go for the spectacle. I would go just to say, like, I mean, it's so famous in Macau, right? It's like Las Vegas and not going to a casino. I want to see the spectacle, even if I don't partake.
Yeah, I agree with you in theory, but in practice, we didn't have that much time. And my friend and I were both foodies. So that's where we ended up.
Right. I think so. Given your circumstance, go enjoy a really nice meal.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're going to remember that probably better.
It was so good. And I don't remember what the food was. I just remember that really powerful wine and a really nice atmosphere. Okay, so if you're thinking about a combination of Portuguese and Chinese culture, you're probably going to think about Macau. In 1989, a British baker living in Macau named Andrew Stowe opened a bakery and began selling his very own version of the egg tart, one with English custard, a Portuguese crust, and a burned top. Now my mouth is watering. Even though I'm not into this stuff, it sounds delicious.
So is the burned top just to char the sugar and it gives it kind of an aesthetic feeling, glossy?
That's it. Well, it also gives you a caramelized taste. It does change the taste, but they don't actually burn it. It's just charred, so you've got that nice caramel flavor on the top, and it looks pretty.
And is this baked in the oven then, or is this charred because they use an exceptionally high – they almost use like a blowtorch on top to caramelize that sugar?
My impulse was to say just from being in the oven, but I don't know. You could be right because that's what they do in the sushi restaurants.
Right. to caramelize.
Right. To continue, his intention was to give Macau's Portuguese community a little taste of home, and thus the Macanese egg tart was born. All right, so Chris has been saying he hasn't been in Taiwan as long as I have, and also he's not that into egg tarts. I'm not either, but I was in Taiwan when Taiwan went absolutely bananas for Portuguese egg tarts. It was just so crazy everywhere you went downtown. And I was just puzzled. What is the big deal? Like, Taiwan is a place of plenty. People do not have to get in lines to get nourishment. Why all these lines over just a pastry?
You know, I was not here for the egg tart craze, but I was here when donuts went viral, and I found it very endearing that Taiwanese just lost their minds over donuts. And I remember it would wait like 30, 40 minutes. And I'm like, man, these must be some good donuts. And the curiosity got the best of me. I got in line and I was like, oh, this tastes like a Dunkin' Donut. Like
It's nothing special.
But I did like that people were like, they had to have it. And there's something very cultural about that kind of thing. But I must say, I recall being back in the U.S. when I was in college. We must have been 20 years old when this famous donut chain finally opened in Buffalo. And one thing my wife noted while we lived in Buffalo is that there are a lot of donut restaurants in Buffalo. She mentioned that. She's like, why are there donut shops everywhere? And I had never noticed that because I thought that was always the case. And when this new donut chain opened, people also got in line to try these donuts. However, due to the nature of our cities, instead of just a line of people, you had a line of 30 cars waiting to get into a parking lot to go through drive-through, which is all the worse, I suppose.
It's very crowded, congested. Yeah, I don't eat donuts. I have never eaten donuts because it is just a lot of starch, fat, and sugar. That's just all it is, and it's usually deep fried.
I just don't find them terribly satisfying.
They shouldn't be. I mean, they've got nothing really good for you in them.
I wonder, although I will say, speaking of egg tarts and like kind of custard fillings, my favorite donut was like the custard filled donut, like the little chocolate on top.
Oh,
and it's like the custard pumped in. Those were always like a childhood favorite of mine.
Oh, I can understand that. And also the Japanese style donut here, I can actually accept that because it's not very sweet and it is quite light. It's almost more like a yeast bread almost. I can accept that, but it's just the really thick heavy cake donuts in the States. What do you think of when you just say the word donut? What's the first thing you think of? Because I got a very clear picture in my mind of something.
I think it's just the classic circle thing.
Okay. I think of a policeman getting breakfast.
Oh, really?
Coffee and donuts. I mean, that is the cliche in the U.S., and that's why American policemen are so fat, people say.
There is a donut restaurant. We're wildly off topic here. There's a donut restaurant back home, and they sell not light donuts, but they sell the thickest, heaviest, cakiest donuts. And I will say I do find those very satisfying. They sell like red velvet ones, and those things, you eat one and like you need to skip a meal after you eat them. They're incredibly dense, and they're very satisfying. I will say that in their defense.
I'm going to wrap this up by saying avoid added sugar. Completely. Let's continue.
All right. Our next paragraph begins. Finally, we look across the East China Sea to Japan.
Okay, now we're going to get a Japanese variation. And these are actually kind of interesting, these different styles.
In 2013, a bakery invented a new type of egg tart containing French and Hokkaido cream cheese.
That was their take on it. So cheesecake is popular. Cheese has been popular in Japan for a long time. And they also use a sweet variety of cheese that they put in a lot of usually bakery goods and things. So this is their variation on egg tarts.
This has my attention. Let's see. This new cheesy cake on the tart went viral instantly in Japan, so much so that it soon began making appearances in various other Asian countries.
And that is understandable. There are a lot of Japanese-style pastries that you will find in Taiwan bakeries. So whatever is popular in Japan, it's going to be over here really fast.
Yeah, I think that a cheesecake-style egg tart is going to catch my attention. I would absolutely take a bite of that one just because I'm a fan of cheesecake. But it does seem like you're getting further removed from what an egg tart is to me.
That's right. And just taking a bite is okay. But, don't start a habit. Our last paragraph, if you're an egg tart lover seeking some fun new twists to your favorite snack, rest assured that plenty of delicious options are available. Now, this is also a kind of journalistic wrap-up phrase, doesn't have a lot of new information. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you.
Number 1, the following content is taken from a diary about the history of the egg tart. Where and when might it be written according to the day 1 passage? The passage goes, we have been using egg whites to starch our clothing, but yolks were often thrown away. Today we came up with a good idea. We made delicious pastries with the yolks. And where would we find this? Answer B, in Lisbon in the 1200s.
Question number 2. According to the day 1 passage, what happened after the egg tart was brought to Hong Kong? The answer is C. Hong Kong made some changes in the egg tart, and it became well-loved.
Let's look at question number 3 here. Why was a new type of egg tart invented in Macau? And the answer is B. It was served to Portuguese people who were homesick.
And our last question, number 4, what is the similarity among the 3 versions of egg tarts mentioned in the day 2 passage? The answer is D. They are revised versions of the original recipe. That's all we have time for today. Well, go out and try some different egg tarts, but don't overdo it. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.